Okay, so let's just dive in. Um, Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight for We Are Me with our special guest, Heather Strout Thompson. My name is Allison McCann, and I'm a board member of the Maine Women's Conference. The mission of the Maine Women's Conference is to draw women together to connect, educate, inspire, and empower one another to assume new and expanded roles in the workforce, in our lives, and communities. When the pandemic hit in 2020, it was clear that we couldn't hold a 500-person live event anytime soon. So we created this We Are Me series to serve our constituency and keep them connected and share the stories of different women who would inspire and empower them. And oh my goodness, does Heather Strout Thompson tick all of those boxes? I'm so excited for her to share her story with you all. But first, a couple of quick housekeeping items. First, like I said, please do say hi in the chat and let us know where you're tuning in from. Oh, hello, Elizabeth and Grace. It's good to see you. We're also going to pop up a poll to find out if this is your first time joining us, or if you have if you've been a guest at one of our previous events. Let me just see here. And then, so the format of this evening is going to be a roughly 40-minute chat with Heather, and then we'll take your audience questions. So if you do have a question, please submit them using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And just as an FYI, my colleague Greta, who's operating things behind the scenes for us tonight, will be showing some photos throughout the evening that Heather generously shared. Okay, so I think we can get started. Please, everyone, do join me in welcoming Heather Strout Thompson. Heather, so good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness.
To talk to you.
Oh, I'm so excited. Heather and I had the opportunity to catch up earlier in this week, and her stories are amazing, and I cannot wait for you to hear it, for you all to hear it. So, Heather, starting out, you are a 4th generation lobster woman. That's amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about what your childhood was like growing up on the water?
Well, for me, I think my childhood wasn't much different from most my age growing up in Downeast, Maine, with parents as lobster fishermen. I mean, I grew up on a lobster boat. I started when I was 10 years old, going sternman. Actually, I just started baiting bait bags until probably I was 11 or 12 years old, and then ended up doing the full-time job of not just baiting bags, but tending gear, measuring and banding lobsters, and stacking traps. Basically, whatever my dad told me to do, I was there to do, just like most captains do. So.
Yeah, and so Greg, can you, there was a photo that we just were looking at, which is one of the old traps. Is this, who's this in this image?
This is my great grandfather, Bertram Beal. He was a fisherman in Millbridge, Maine. These traps, these wooden traps, circle traps, we also had square traps, but when I first started at 10 years old, this was 37 years ago, I'm 47 years old. So we had traps like that we fished. And each year, it was one of my jobs in the spring was to take paint scrapers and scrape the barnacles off the traps, off the laths. So, and also paint buoys. We had wooden buoys that we used. It's not the styrofoam buoys that you see now. We also, my dad would take me in a skiff and we would island hop and go, he'd throw me out and with a few buckets to go out and collect rocks, flat rocks, to put in these traps when we go to set them, to sink the traps so they get waterlogged. So the next time we'd haul back, we'd take the rocks out and throw them back over, but that was just to sink them until they got wet. I do remember he'd always get upset with me if I get too round of rocks, because when he'd haul them up, they'd roll right out the back of the trap and bust the lath. He didn't like that very much. But he really wanted the flat rocks. So
Yeah.
I got good at picking rocks for quite a while too. That was
That's
one of my
amazing.
jobs.
That's amazing. That all sounds very, is it all very heavy? It all sounds very heavy. Like,
They are heavy, especially after they get waterlogged and have rocks in them, but they're not too bad when they're dry. You know, you can move them around fairly easy. They're actually were a lot lighter than the wire traps that we have now with the blocks and the bricks and
oh,
ergos in them. Yeah, cement runners. Things have changed a lot since that picture right there.
yes, this is
Seen
like
a lot.
quintessential. This is like
Yes.
old time, right?
Absolutely.
Wow. So that's really interesting. So it sounds like you're on your dad's boat. You're 10 years old. You're scraping barnacles and grabbing rocks and doing like this is
Moving.
this is hard. This is tough work.
It's hard work, especially for me, I grew up with two sisters, so there was three of us girls, and we were not treated any different than the boys were, my cousins, and so we were actually expected to do all this, and it wasn't even a question of whether or not we could do it. We just were expected to do it. So yeah, whatever needed to be done, that was the job, and that's what you do.
There you go. Someone's got to do it, right? So
Someone's got to do it.
So, so when you say, I mean, I've heard you say that it's like it's in your blood, right? I mean, I feel like it's like your whole family tree at this point, right? I mean, it's fourth generation. You've fished with your dad. You now fish with your sister, and you're raising the next generation in your boys. Do I have all that right?
So as I said, I started when I was 10 years old with my dad. I fished for 37 years. This is the only thing I've ever done. When I was 28 years old, so it's been about 19 years, I decided I was going to take the steps and go ahead and get my own boat and do this on my own. So I've been actually a captain for 19 years. My sister Hilary in this picture here has been with me probably 15. This year will be her 16th year with me as my sternman. Growing throughout those years, I was a mom, so I had two boys that are now 20 and 25 that used to go on the boat with me. So that's my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they actually have their own boats now. They're fishermen. Both fish the state limit like I do. And it just goes down the line. I was raised on the water. My boys went with us, and my niece, who also is was Hilary's daughter, went with us a lot. So it's definitely a family affair. I mean, I'm out there. My ex-husband fished the whole time. My dad, the boats behind in the background here are actually, I would have to say, if there's 30 boats down there, 25 of them I'm related to, are my family, are cousins and uncles. And that's my oldest son, Spencer. He would be on the boat. We'd set him off to the side, whether it's in a crate or put him on the bulkhead, bring plenty of food just to tuck him away, and you do your job.
Yeah. So this story you were just telling me, which is amazing, which also speaks to this, like the lineage of this, right? Like, can you tell me the story of this little boat?
So this little boat, I was actually pregnant with my youngest, and this was when I first started my own boat. I just got Brat was my first, not Brat, shark bait. That was my first boat as a captain. So it was a big deal. I named that shark bait also because of the movie Finding Nemo, because my kids love the movie. So that's why that boat was named that. But
Oh, that's
River Brat
amazing.
was actually built by my dad because my oldest son wanted his own lobster boat too, like me. So my dad built this boat because this is something that you can't buy. He designed it. He put a little light switch in, so you see the trolling motor so that he could troll around, had the steering wheel in it. Sooner or later he upgraded and we got him some plotters and deck finder and stuff to put in there to make it look a little bit better for him. But we actually had a Davy that you'll see if you have some of the other pictures, that they actually could haul up their gear. And this was just at the lake, just them playing around with it. And it went through Spencer, my oldest, and my youngest, Nathan. He played with it. He grew up with it. And then it went to my nieces. They went through it and played with it. And each time we would paint it up a different color to match one of our boats and to make it cool looking and all that. But they got so much use out of that boat right there. And hopefully that will be passed down for many generations.
So that's so cool because, you were just talking about how there's like 30 other boats where yours are that you're related to, but is this the only like little baby boat around? I mean, I feel like there could be like a whole market for this of like,
he could build them. And so after that was built, I had so many people ask where I got it. And I said, oh, my dad built it. And they're like, oh my gosh, does he want to build another one? And like, because he's like, no, right now he's a full-time fisherman. I mean, he fishes the 800 and he works probably harder than any man that's 40 years old. He just goes at it. So he just didn't have, I don't know if the time or whatnot, but I think a lot of people did maybe start and build those little boats, maybe not quite that small, but they did some mini boats because there were a lot of little boys and girls liking the looks of that. So
I'm sure
it was a lot of fun. It was fun to watch them use that and play in that.
Seems like the coolest thing around,
It is really cool. I mean, there's a picture too. My dad, it would get in it and ride, tool around with the boys in it.
That's
we
amazing.
could ride in it. It was fun.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Well, it sounds like your exposure, the exposure that your boys had while you were working, essentially, sparked a whole love of the profession in them as well. But we had spoken a little bit about what it's like to be a working mom like that with two young kids, and what is that experience like?
So being a mom in this industry as a captain, it wasn't it was really a godsend for me because I was able to be my own boss. If my kids were sick or if they had appointments or if there was something going on, I could always make arrangements and work around that. But it also was hard because, if my mom or my sisters couldn't watch the kids or my kids didn't want to go because they wanted to be on the boat and threw their little temper tantrums to go, we would cave and we would take them. And this is the result of that at times. And, it does make it a little hard when they're younger to be on the boat because you have so many different things you're trying to pay attention to. You still have to make a living while you're out there. Sure. And you're constantly have one eye off your bow and all around, and then you have an eye on what the kids are doing. Are they dangling over the edge, or they want something to eat, or they have to go to the bathroom? So it's just like any job where a parent has to take or does take their kids to work. It's just maybe a little more dangerous at times. You try to keep them confined to a small area. This was always the awesome time where you set them up there and you give them something to eat, and they kind of would lay there for a little while, and it's like, all right, it's showtime, let's go. Now we can get a few hauled while they're sitting quietly right there. So
wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's assume that there is a day that doesn't look like this, and they're not on the boat. They're not on the boat with you. Now they're grown and they're on their own boats.
Yeah.
What does a typical day look like for you? Like,
so now that they're grown,
how does this business work, I guess, is the question.
Every captain goes at different times. You know, some of them that go offshore have to leave a lot earlier than what I would leave. I fish the rivers. So, you know, if I'm up by 4:30, 5 o'clock, down in my boat by 5 or 5:30, I can actually unhook my boat and start hauling my traps right there. So for me, I have to deal with the tide. I only have 4 or 5 hours where my buoys are actually above the water so I can haul them. So I have to do a lot of timing and calculating where I need to haul. Like I mentioned before, I have 800 traps. So, and most of my traps I pair up. I have some singles, and in the fall I will do triples or quads. But for the most part, they're pair. And you know, I have to. There's a lot of timing that goes into that. So basically, we get down there, unhook, get to wherever we're going to start hauling. I don't know, for most, it's just you haul your buoy, you know, tend your traps, switch out bait bags, take out your lobsters. My sister does all the measuring. She's pretty fast at it, and we actually take pride in how fast we do work. We like to get through them fairly quickly. We're pretty smooth that way, and I'm proud of that because we worked really hard to do that. And set them back. We take our lobsters after we hauled everything, head back to where the moorings are, where my boat is moored, and we can sell our lobsters right there. We fill up with more bait and fuel if we need to, hook it back and head home, and then do it again the next day, all over again.
Wow. So, you know, you're doubling up traps. When you're pulling them up, you're pulling up. I mean, is it that kind of like you're pulling up double? And so,
yeah. So on each line, we'd have 2 traps most of the time. So we call them pair. We'd haul one trap up. I'd slide it down for my sister. She'd start tending that one, and the other one would come up on another line. It's probably 8 to 10 fathom longer. It will come up. I haul that. And usually I just pick the lobsters out of that, and she does the bait bag for me while I'm driving, sailing around, trying to see where I want to push it over, trying to find an open hole. That's the key up in the rivers right now. There's so many buoys up there. You really have to. You can't go around and just push the traps anywhere and set on all over everybody. So there is a lot of paying attention, and you know, there's a lot to it. It's not just going out for a joyride and taking time and hauling and picking through things, looking at starfish and all that. You know, we've seen enough of that. We're just, you know, we're trying. Time is money is one of the things that we're always taught. So we're trying to get through as much gear as possible, because that's how we make our living. That's how we make our money.
Yeah. It sounds like it needs to be like a really well synchronized, like you're just working together, like so in sync. And I'm sure there's something pretty special about doing it with your sister. I know I have a sister, and I feel like we would be more in sync than a lot of other people.
Absolutely. We get along. We get along so good. We have so much fun, and it's not even like work a lot of the time. It's physically demanding work. You get tired, but it's not like going and you're dreading to go to work with sometimes we're not with the public or anything. It's just us, and we can be ourselves and talk and cry and complain or whatever we want to do. It's pretty sweet.
Well, some days must be really, really hard. I mean, like with weather, like whether it's freezing or it's really hot.
We've been in some very nasty weather. Yeah. It's not always sun is shining and a slight breeze. I mean, you have chop and waves and rain and thunder and lightning, and just being cold and miserable, and snow, and you know, all those elements that you're out in. It takes a lot out of your body, not just the physical labor of working. It's the elements too. It wears on you. and
I
it's
would
not
think
easy.
I would think some days it would be really mentally draining to be like, I
It
can't,
is, man.
I can't.
There, especially when my kids were younger. I do remember a lot of the times, you know, me thinking, what what did I do? You know, why, you know, it's just mentally exhausting, mentally and physically draining to go to work and then come home as a parent and a mom of two boys and a wife at the time, you know, and having to do all the household things too. I
Sure.
mean, when you get off that boat, you're not done. You still have everything else that you have to do as a mom,
Right.
and you know, just that alone will make you sometimes want to curl up and cry. So
Yeah.
just, you know, it does, it wears, and you
Yeah.
just then again you'll stop and look at your kids and you know why you're doing it.
Yeah.
So it makes it worth it. You'll come out of it. It
Yeah.
will be better.
So you started right out of high school
Yes.
fishing essentially on your own, and then you became your own captain. So can you talk to
Okay.
me a little bit about the progression of your
Uh,
business, because it
Sure,
seems to have
sure.
really grown.
So, so I started when I was 10. I fished right up with my dad until I just got out of high school. I married when I was 19. And after a few years, I decided that I would go on the boat with him. So my uncle had a boat. He wasn't a fisherman. His dad fished a little bit, but he essentially worked for Connor's Aquaculture. And I was a fisherman, and you know, bringing home paychecks, you compare those, and I was doing well. So he decided that maybe that was something that he could do. We purchased a boat from my uncle. It cost us $9,000 for that first lobster boat, and we got to pay. We paid $3,000 a year for 3 years until we paid that off. We maxed out credit cards to buy rope and buoys and traps, and started out fishing. And I decided that I was going to go leave my dad, which my sister Hilary stepped in, the one that goes with me now. She ended up going with my dad, and I went with my husband for a few years until I realized that I like to be boss too, and he wanted to be boss, and it didn't really work out that great. So that's when we thought it would be best if I go ahead and I strike it out on my own, which I had so much support, not just from him saying that I could do it, but my parents were really supportive, and my sisters, and they're just so we did. And I purchased that little skiff shark bait when my kids were little, and I started out, said, what the heck, here we go. And then I gradually, the boat I own now, Gold Digger, that's my 4th boat that I owned, that I built with my family.
Do you
So I've gone through
progress?
4 boats.
Oh, so you progress through them. You don't have for like.
No. I had that shark bait was my first boat. I did well with that, enough so the boat that I grew up on, I ended up buying from my dad, which was named Easy Money. And I bought that from my dad and named it Daddy's Money. And I fished that for a few years, did well. And then I bought a hull, a 33 Crowley. I bought a hull and we finished that off, had that for a few years, sold that. I was doing well, decided I wanted a little bit bigger boat, a faster boat.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought a 36 Wayne, is a hull from Wayne Beal, and we finished that off, put a pretty sweet engine in it, and that's the one I'm in now, that I currently fish and race.
And so So also after, am I remembering this correctly? You were an athlete in high school.
I did.
And
I played all three. Yeah.
and then after you started coaching right after high school, right?
I started coaching when I was 19 years old, right out of high school. I coached, I actually started softball, varsity softball, with the coach that I had, Mr. Elliott Noyes. And he took me under his wing a little bit, gave me the opportunity to actually coach a lot of the girls that I was playing with the year before. And
That's an interesting
yeah,
dynamic.
that was weird. That was odd, but I learned a lot, and there was a respect between all of us. After the softball, I started that. I coached Pee Wee basketball at DW Merritt. Every coaching position that I've had, and I've been coaching almost every year since I was 19 years old, whether it's softball, volleyball, or basketball. And I did girls, I did boys, and I did all levels from Pee Wee basketball, which is 3rd, 4th grade, right up until varsity high school seniors. So I had a wide range of athletes that I was blessed to work with. And these are some of the girls that I kind of joke a lot that this experience here, winning that gold ball, was probably just as big as the birth of my kids.
Yeah.
Not really, but it's like, that was one of the coolest experiences of my life, to be able to be part of that whole experience with the community, the athletes, the parents, everybody. I mean, it was unreal.
So for people who are on here who maybe aren't from Maine or who don't know what the gold ball is, which might be hard to believe after last weekend and how rowdy and popular the high school basketball tournaments were, but in Maine, high school basketball is huge.
It's like the NBA. It's big here. That's what we do in the winter. It's big.
And so this year, right, you lobster fish in the summer and you do this in the winter, right?
Pretty much.
So this is a team that you coached that won the state championship?
Yes. I had most of these girls for 2 years, and we could never get past that first round in the playoffs when we went to the tournaments. And I started in 13, 14, and in 16, we managed to get over that first hump in Bangor, and we didn't look back. We never stopped until we came home with that from Augusta.
That's amazing.
That took us 2 years to get that.
Yeah. And so the trophy is called the gold ball, right?
That's the gold ball. That's what every athlete wants to be a part of.
Right.
Is to have that right there.
And so Reed Jones had asked in the chat, did I miss this? What is the name of the current boat? And we didn't say what the name boat, but here this is it, right? This is the name of the boat.
This is my current boat right now. This is the one I race. This is the one I fish out of. I built this boat in 2017, the year I actually had purchased the hull in 2016 and finished it off in 2017. So this boat is named after the 2016 basketball team. A lot of people see Gold Digger and it's kind of it's a fun conversation piece because they don't know. But if you happen to look at that lobster on the back of the stern there, it's holding a gold ball.
If you go, it's a lobster holding the trophy. Like, I mean, it's amazing. It's
he's holding a gold ball. So that boat is for those girls and that experience and succeeding.
I mean, I get the sense that coaching and competition has been a big part of your. I mean, you work in a competitive industry. You coach to help people be competitive. Like there's a spirit here I'm getting.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely am a competitive person, and I want to say I'm not a sore loser, but I like to win. And that started ever since I was a kid, actually going on the boat with my dad. And I think that's why I was so competitive, is because he never, I don't know, I never liked to be told that I couldn't do something. And that's one of the things that he would say to me to get me to do something. It was almost a reverse psychology with him, as like, you can't throw that trap up 5 high or 6 high. And then I'd be like, oh, but I can. So I would do that. And he act all impressed. And I like that. So I think a lot of that is where all this came from, is I didn't like to be told that I couldn't do something. And I wanted to be able to prove that I could. And I don't want to go into this thinking that I have something to prove, because I don't have anything to prove to anybody, but it's something I want to prove to myself that I can do it. And if I set my mind to something, or if there's something I want to do, I'm going to try to do it to the best of my ability. And whether it's coaching or racing or lobstering or being a good friend or a mom or whatever it may be, I just, I want to do it right, or try my best anyway. So that's where all that competition stuff comes from.
Yeah. Well, I would think in a couple things. I would think that it would help a lot when you are in what I assume to be, I shouldn't make assumptions, but what I assume to be a pretty male dominated profession.
It is, yes.
You're like, I can do this too. I just, like you had said before, I mean, you might just do it a little bit differently, right? Like you might.
Exactly. That's a lot of the things that women now that are trying to get into this, that I have actually mentioned to them. I may not have done things the exact way a man does things, as far as lifting a trap or fishing or however anything may be, but I'll get the job done. But it might not be the same way as they may do it, which doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different. So if they can accept it, then I mean, it's more on them than it is us or me.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I'll just do it my way and make my living, and we'll be just.
Well, that's kind of why I went on my own and got my own boat. Right.
Got it. Yeah. So now this boat here. So this is what I also want to talk about, because this boat in this image right here, this boat looks very, very fast to me. So this is, I'm assuming your love of competing has also sort of propelled you in this other competitive thing you do, which is racing.
Yes. I remember growing up as a little girl, going to the lobster boat races and putting across from Harrington to Jonesport, which is like an hour sail, and going, 10 knots, and just taking forever to get there to go watch these fast boats race in Moosebeck Reach. And just the whole atmosphere of boats rafting up, and the smell of the gas, and just a whole atmosphere. I fell in love with it, and I knew as a little girl, a young girl, like someday I'm going to do this. And obviously, I mean, it does take time. It takes money to build up to that point. And I was 30 years trying to get to this point, 37 years. So when I had the opportunity to get mostly what I wanted, heck, I'm a girl, I would love more power, but I couldn't quite go that far yet. So I did. I got a 675 Scania, and this hull, put them together, and my ex-husband and my family ended up, we finished it off in 3 months in my brother-in-law's garage. And we set the boat in August, and within 3 days, I had my first lobster boat race that I took it to in Winter Harbor, won that, and didn't look back. I competed in every race that the finishing that year, and then the last 4 years, I've raced in the points and won the championship 4 years in a row, won all my points races. So I'm hoping this year will be the 5th, and then we'll see how much further I go.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So you You decided to start this out. I'm going to ask you one quick question. So the Scania, is that the engine? Is that like,
Yeah,
is
it's
that what that-
it's who makes this engine. It's a name. It's like a John Deere or a,
okay.
there we go.
But it's the power. It's the power. It's the power.
It's
So you
the
buy
po-
the
right.
buy the
It's the
frame,
engine
and then you
name,
buy the power, and you put them together, and that's how you make your boat.
pretty much.
Okay, from a layman's perspective, from my perspective,
Right.
sure there's more to it. So
Right.
so so how fast? Like how long is a race, and how fast do you go?
The track isn't very long. I wouldn't even say it's a quarter of a mile. I don't even know how fast. They vary from place to place, but it's not that far. I run in a race, I probably could go, my best time was 43 miles an hour. I was clocked out on radar, which
Wow.
I can, a lot of it depends on the water conditions, tide, and if I'm coming or going against the tide. But from 39, 40 to 43 miles an hour, I just need to go faster than the next guy. That's all I care about.
You need to go faster than everybody else. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
So they're sort of like shorter sprints rather than like.
Yeah, it's basically, that's what it is. If you know what a drag race is, if you go watch cars drag race, that's basically what a boat race is. They'll line you up on a start line. There'll be a pace boat with a flag on it that you're watching. When they drop the flag, it's full steam ahead, and the first one to cross the finish line is the winner.
That's so fun.
So
How many?
And these are in classes. So like I wouldn't be competing with someone that has 1,000 horsepower, or I wouldn't be competing with somebody with 300 horsepower, or we are, the boat length and the engine size are we're putting categories, and I believe there's like 28 different classes. So there's like outboards, skiffs running these races all the way up to 40-50 foot boats. So it's a long day, and it's fun to just go and watch everybody race, and some teasing going on, and it's basically bragging rights is really all it is. You're not going to get rich off of it. It's going to actually cost you money, but it's totally worth it.
But when you win, it's worth it, right?
Well, yeah, that when you win, that's the bragging rights. That's what you can, yeah.
So when you do these, do you have a crew, or is it just you?
When I go to these races,
mm-hmm.
Most of the time my family will jump on and go, and I occasionally, I like to take some of the girls, young girls that kind of look at it, and I'll get messages that they might want to go, or that they see me, and so I'll try to go over and scoop them up and take them down the track, because I wish I had somebody that that would have done that with me. And so I like to be able to give the rides and things. Yeah,
that's great.
That's what's rewarding. That's what's fun for me. I met a lot of people through racing. Like I said, there's 12 races in a circuit, and they go from Mooseback Reach to Portland. And one year I hit every single race. I sailed the coast of Maine going to these races almost every weekend, which is a lot of work when you haul your fishing during the week. And I usually, before a race on a Saturday, I'll pull my boat up and clean it and wax the bottom and change props or whatever I have to do before I go. So, for a few months, it's pretty exhausting, but I do it to myself because I like it. So,
yeah. But you also have to be really careful, right? Because this is your fun competition boat. It is your livelihood boat.
That's what's scary about it, because this year will be my 5th year. So, if something happens to it, if I blow an engine, or if I do some major damage, I'm not only out money because I have to fix it, I'm out money that I'd be making because I can't go to work. So it's definitely a chance that I'm taking. It's an addiction. The racing is an addiction for me. It's what I do with, that's what I do for fun. That's where my money goes, basically, is in that boat right there. Yeah. But I suppose it could be worse. Could be spending money on other stuff, but that's what I like. That's what I love.
Of all the things you could be addicted to, this is expensive. It's not.
It's an expensive addiction, but there's other more expensive addictions. We'll put
Right,
it that way.
right, right. So, okay, so you have started your own business. You've
Yeah.
raised a family. You've stoked a very competitive fire in yourself, and you have inspired and coached young student athletes, and obviously now have mentored, young girls who potentially want to race as well. And for all of this, you've recently been featured in a couple of books, right? Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, we've not just myself, but I'm not the only. There's so many women that are getting into the fishing industry that I've seen. When I started, there was hardly any. There was none, and now it's so nice to see women striking it out and trying to make a name for themselves in the fishing industry. And yeah, I'm pretty proud of being able to be featured with some of these women in the book Pretty Rugged, Allie Burrell, and then Gigi George's book Downeast actually talks a little bit about our basketball, the state championship, and things like that. Some magazines. My family and I were able to be part of a Red Lobster commercial, which was featured by Great Big Story a few years back, and I believe that's how Gordon Ramsay's show Uncharted, we was found by that.
Yeah, so that is what I want to talk about. Tell me a little bit about that. You were asked to be on Gordon Ramsay's television show Uncharted.
Yes.
And to do
so we got
to do what?
So a couple of years ago, we actually I got a call, and I hadn't really heard of the show. I did, but I never really watched it. And so obviously after I got done talking to him, that's the first thing I did, is like, what am I getting myself into? And they asked me if I'd be interested. They wouldn't tell me who at first, but if I would take this famous chef out on the lobster boat to catch lobster, because basically, if you haven't seen the show, he goes all over the world and meets up with these different people that can take him to get ingredients or things that they have grown or hunted or whatever, and then at the end of the show, he makes this big feast with everything that he's collected. So on this episode, it's called the Maine episode on season 3. Episode 3, actually, he went on a lobster boat for lobster. I think he churned butter and went to get clams and oysters. These were the 3 things that he did. And then at the end, that we would all get to eat Chef Ramsay's cooking. So that's pretty cool, right? So we ended up taking him on the boat. And before it even started, I said, because I don't like seafood. I like not one single ounce of seafood. So I told them, I said, you may want to look for somebody else because I can't do seafood. And they said, no, this is great. This is great. Well, we want you to do this. We want you to take him, and we want you to be hard on him because he thinks what he's seen, he's going to go out and it's going to be easy for him. But we want you to give him the experience of what it's like to be a fisherman in Maine. And I said, oh boy, can I do that? I'd love to be, So yeah, we took him out, and it was so much fun. We went back and forth and played, and he struggled doing things, and he really was kind of shocked that a couple ladies from Downeast, Maine was putting him through the ringer, and
because he's a big guy, right?
Yeah. But see, he is. He's actually wearing my oil gear right there because he wanted the blue for some reason. I don't know, but no, that was like the day that we went out. There wasn't another boat out. It was so rough and windy. We were taking waves over the bow, and so his eyes were huge anyway. And I wanted to, I wanted to show him no fear. We were going to put him through it. So we gave it our all and put him through it. And he ended up taking a few lobsters home, and he ran out of there. I think he had enough. He was ready to get off the boat, but he was a lot of fun. He's a really great guy, and it was such a cool experience, and all of it. Even to go to the last dinner and forcing down some seafood that I absolutely did not like, and I lied and said it was great. But that was part of it. I ate it. I tried it. So
you fulfilled your part of the invitation.
I did my part. He did his. So.
But now, see, because his whole thing, right, is that he's really tough on he's tough on people, and he has high expectations for people.
Absolutely.
And so when they were having him come on your boat, they had coached you to.
They didn't really they wanted to make sure that I wasn't tiptoeing around everything, that I would push him and make him work like we're currently working. Like to be fast, and to be, when you do something, you do it with meaning, and so we tried to push that on him, just like he would if we were in his kitchen. Exactly. And they didn't tell me. They just wanted me to give him a real Maine experience, and not like the joy ride, the thing that you pay for to go for a boat ride and pick lobsters out and look at starfish. They wanted him to work, and I said I can make him work.
Yeah, maybe you taught him a few new phrases.
I believe that's something that he said. He was going to take some of the words that I taught him back to his kitchen and use it on some of his sous chefs.
I love that so much. Okay, so here we are. We're about 10 of, or 13 minutes of. So let me. I'm going to pivot over to see some of these questions, if I could. Okay, so one of the questions, we didn't really talk about this. We spoke about your the time frame in a day that you fish, but what's the season? How many months a year are you? Okay. Like, are you?
So for me, I the past few years I haven't really spring fished much. So, but I'll start in early June or mid-June, and I'll go to the end of November. I'll try to get my gear up. That's just my season where I fish up in the rivers. Most of the time, come November, things dry up pretty much. So, and plus it starts to get cold, and I'd rather not be out there when it's freezing for nothing. A lot of other people, some of the bigger boats that fish offshore, they can fish year round. So, I mean, as for me, I usually start June, and then we'll take up in November.
Yeah.
Basketball season.
I was gonna say, because you got other things you gotta crush it at. You gotta go crush it at basketball. But also, I mean, during that time, is that also when you focus on like the business of your business? Like, I mean, there's a lot to it, right? I mean,
when you're constantly paying attention to what you're doing as you're going through the season, because you want to keep track of where you're catching and how much you're catching, and where you may have fished in previous years that you may be able to move and do better at. So, most of the time when November rolls around and I'm starting to get my traps on the bank, when the last one hits the bank, I'm like, I can actually shut my brain down just a little bit and breathe.
Oh, good. It's
relax a little bit until basketball practices start, and then it's a whole different stress level. But it's pretty much the same thing.
But it's basketball and the holidays, so
that's right. Right around, absolutely.
Okay, so let's see. There's a question. So it says, "Wait, when did you get your own boat?" And I think we said
so. I was probably around 28. I was, let's see, I'm 47. So I've been captain of my own boat for 19 years. So I think I was right around 28 when I got my first shark bait.
Yeah. Cool.
And then, I'd fish a couple of years and then upgrade, fish a few years. And I think I had Redneck Girls for like 7 years before I sold, and this will be my 5th year with Gold Digger. So
cool.
Definitely took time, over the years. It's not something, for me, it's not something that happened overnight.
Yeah. And then there's a question here of this I think is going to be a really interesting answer because it's probably going to is how old were your boys when they got involved? And I feel like that's a hard question. Like, do you mean when they're playing on their little boat or when they're actually
right, or when they're being made to work to buy their school clothes, so they have a certain amount of things they have to do, because they are, I mean, you saw how little they were when they could stand on something to bait bags is usually when they would play around and then maybe get sidetracked and go do something else. But I have to say, for stressed and it's not easy to take your kids like that and to keep them busy. But my oldest and my youngest had boats, full-size boats at age 14 years old, fishing, 500-600 traps or whatever the limit was when they could do it. And now they both have new boats, new engines, and fish the limit and are fishing offshore with federal permits at 20 and 25 years old. So again, they started so young, but they progressed to where they are now, as if honestly, it would be hard to get into that where they are if you wasn't raised or born into it. Now there's waiting lists to get licenses, and there's just so much involved. So for me, I feel blessed. I feel lucky that I've had the chance to grow up as a fisherman and have what I have now, and that my kids are able to do the same, and are hopefully I'll be a grandmother in June to a grandson. So I'm hoping that maybe my grandson will be a 6th generation lobsterman. So hopefully the opportunity will be there for them as it is for, most other people. It's hard to say. Things are changing so much right now. So
Sure. Well, and you were talking about, who knows if your grandson will also want rope as a birthday.
That's right.
You're telling that story, which I think is so adorable.
Yeah, with that little boat, we, when it wasn't in the water, we keep it on the lawn and let him play with it. And my youngest son, that's what he'd want for his birthdays. You'd be like, what do you want for your birthday? And he said, I want a coil of rope. Or he'd want some buoys that he could paint himself on, or some traps. And basically he'd stand out on the lawn and uncoil and coil up rope all day long. So that little boat that has gone through many generations, well, not many, but it started with, it's been 20 years that old that boat is, and it's gone through 4 different paint jobs and a couple different families with kids, and hopefully it will come back to Spencer's son, and he'll be able to have that and play with that and learn, experience it. So
great.
Full circle there. That one did.
That is so great. So there's a question here, and I don't know if this is kind of one of those questions, which is that have oyster farms and rivers changed your work? So I don't know if that's part of
not where I am. I don't see those. They're not in the Harrington River where I fish. I'm sure it does others, or I can't really say on that because I don't know. I don't have to experience working around them or anything like that. But I know the climate and things like that have changed a lot of the fishing, and that's different. The starting sooner, we can catch earlier. Lobsters may be shedding and coming out a little bit earlier because it's the water temps are warmer. But I can't really say about the oyster thing.
Sure. Fair enough. And then Adelaide wants to know where she can get your cool black baseball cap with the person on the front from the title slide. Let me see if I can look at it here. From the first. Oh, it looks like it's got like
it's a Guy Cotton. It's a Guy Cotton. I got that at let's see, the Fisherman's Forum in Rockland. That's a Guy Cotton baseball cap. I believe that's a trucker's cap is what she was talking about. yeah, I would go around to those and they would just they gave them to me to wear for certain things. So
I'm sure they're like, hey, will you wear
yeah,
this when you're going racing? Hey, will you wear this when you're having your photo
yeah.
taken?
I've been lucky and got some stuff. But that's what it is. That's Guy Cotton, I believe. It's just like Grungens or any of those. You probably could get right on their website and find that.
Yeah. Well, I would say, you've certainly earned it all, right? By all these things. So with all that you've accomplished, you just sort of said, and was just wondering what comes next for you, do you think?
I've always said since I started the racing thing that I want to be the not just fastest woman on the water. I want to be the fastest racer on the water. So I need lots of bucks to be able to do that. So it might take me a little while, but someday I'd like to be able to really race like that. But basically just to continue to be happy and do the job that I love to do and that I feel I was born to do, and to be able to spend time with my family and my grandkids, my new grandkids. I'm so excited about being a grandmother and continue coaching. And, I said it before, I'm really blessed, not just to have my family and friends, but the community I live in is so awesome and so supportive. And I just want to be able to give back and be able to make them proud and to be able to help them in certain things or whatever they need to do. So just to give back a little bit, because I've been lucky in life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will say this, and I think everyone here will agree with me that that your grandson is going to have one pretty cool grandma.
Oh, thank you.
There's not a lot of boat racing, like,
thank you.
Working hard, like it's very cool. It's very cool.
I appreciate that. That means a lot to me, because you don't, when you do this thing, you don't expect anything. I'm like anybody else. I'm a fisherman from Maine. I didn't expect the books and the opportunities that I've had. So I'm just really grateful to be able to, even just to talk to you all. I mean, it's really nice to know that I'm here and I have this opportunity. That's all. So,
well,
thank you.
And I think you did your dad. I think you did exactly what your dad told you to. And what was it that he always said to you growing up?
He always said, "Be somebody."
Yeah.
So,
well, I think you've certainly done him very, very proud, and everyone in your community. And I can't tell you how much I have enjoyed tonight. And I thank you so much for being so generous with your story and your time.
Oh, absolutely.
And
thank you.
And I just want to say a big thank you to everybody in the audience tonight for joining us.
Me too. Thank you.
And for your questions. We're still considering guests for the next WeAreME event. So please fill out the survey that you get after this and let us know who you'd like to see in the future. And I'd also encourage you all to follow the Maine Women's Conference on social media to stay up to date. The great news is that we plan on being back together in person for the conference this October. The RFP for speakers will be coming out soon. So if you're interested in participating that way, be on the lookout. Or if you know of any organization that would be interested in supporting the conference through sponsorship, please email us. You can find the address on the website. But honestly, Heather, I just enjoyed myself so much. I thank you again.
So did I. Thank you.
Felt like I was chatting with a friend, and
thank you.
I thought it was great, and we hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.